Welcome to Memory Lanes. This podcast is brought to you by the Oracle Group and Define Creative. I'm Harriet.
And I'm Alice, and we'll be talking to wonderful people from our sector about the homes they've lived in, so you get to know the person behind the LinkedIn profile.
Simone, thank you so much for joining our podcast today. It's lovely for you to be able to come here.
Yes.
And I know we've obviously worked together in the past, a few years back, and Alice hasn't had the pleasure.
Met you
of-
before, so this
first
is a
time.
really
First
interesting
time.
way to get to know
Yes,
you.
Absolutely. So it might be lovely then if we just start it off with you explaining kind of, you know, your background and how you came to start into property, and then we can kind of chat about your home.
It was by default. So I left school at 16. I wanted to be a show jumper. I had horses, and that's all I wanted to do. So I got a job as an estate agent purely by chance to try and earn some money to help my parents, because having horses is very expensive. I started on the YCS scheme, £40 a week, and I was in the back office, so I was an office junior. I was doing all of the mail outs and all of, you know, the cruddy stuff that nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
And I just really took to it. And then I went to the front office, I became a negotiator, I did really well, and then I became a senior negotiator, and it just really took off from there. And that's really where my property journey started. So I was in agency for many years, and then I was running an area, so I was an area partner. And then I started to specialise in land and new homes. And I did that for quite a few years, covering Essex, Suffolk and Norfolk. And one of my clients approached and said, would I come in for a conversation? And I said, well, no, and they persisted. And the reason that they asked was we'd sold a very difficult development for them that they'd mothballed, that actually built it for a housing association. The deal had fallen through. And I'd secured the instruction to sell the development, and we did very well. And it was in very poor part of Essex, but it went swimmingly. So I went in to see them, and they offered me a job as a field sales manager, working for Lovell London. And that's really where my career then started. On the other side of the fence, they say the lighter side of the fence, actually working directly for a developer. So many different elements of sales and marketing. It's
all those different age groups, all those different living situations.
Yes, very different.
So different.
Product very different, demographic very different. The ability to be able to recognise that what we had to build was different. And then going across to retirement villages, again, you're then developing something for the retired person. But I think outside looking in, the expectation is, okay, we're talking about retirement, we're talking about retired old people. I'm actually old enough to be in one of those. And I would not want to live in what somebody would typically call a retired property. We're not talking brown high-back chairs, you know, with sort of plastic seats that can be washed down. We're talking high-end luxury. People have an expectation. They want something that's beautiful. But the art of it is to make something that's beautiful, but that has the longevity to grow with that person as their needs are changing. So it's about being smart with the interior design particularly, and the environment that they're living in, so that as their needs change, they can still stay in their home, they can still be independent, but the product has the ability to change with them.
To grow with them.
Yeah,
I love that. It's like things like it's like plug sockets being sort of middle height as opposed to being right down by the floor. It's sort of small changes like that.
It's small changes. It's having things, you know, when the build is actually happening, it's the patching, the wall patching, making sure that they're strong enough, that people can have grab rails put on if they want to. I managed to find a bathroom, a sort of a sanitary company where you could have a shower riser that was strong enough to actually be able to be held like a grab rail would be, but it looked like an ordinary shower riser. The ability to be able to put seats in showers if you want, but they're not there.
So all this knowledge of homes and the different schemes and the different age groups, obviously this all stemmed from you just trying to have a bit of extra money to feed your hobby.
My £40 per week,
So tell us a little bit about your, well, I suppose there's two properties that you're going to talk about today, but, you know, would it be your childhood home? Sort of where did you grow up? And
yes, I was thinking about this actually. I think The childhood home I would refer to, it was a very modest, 3-bedroomed, end of terraced house in Walden in Essex. So my parents, we didn't have a lot of money at all, and it's actually surprising what you find out later on when you're an adult.
Yeah.
It actually still puts you on a bit of a guilt trip when you realise some of the things that your parents went without.
They made.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we lived, it was called the Poets Estate, and we'd moved from a 2-bedroomed chalet-style property in Tolsbury, which is sort of even further into the depths of Essex. My sister came along, and there's 5 years difference between myself and my sister. So 2 bedrooms weren't big enough. So we bought this new house. And I just remember there are some things about it that I really remember. And now looking back, particularly when I'm looking at specification and how things come sort of back into fashion. So one of the things I really remember in the bathroom were those veined tiles that you used to get. So they're white, but they had a vein on them, and they would either be a sage green vein or they would be a lilac. And they were so in.
Yes, I can picture them
and
now.
pink, and they had these veins on. And we only had one bathroom. We didn't even have a ground floor cloakroom. So I remember the bathroom just a plain white suite with these veiny tiles. And then the other thing I remember is the kitchen. You walked in, and my father knocked the entrance hall down. So you walked in, it was open plan, sort of living room. And then you went through, and then there was a kitchen diner that ran along the back, which I think was just so typical of the period. So it was about 1971.
Yeah.
And the kitchen, it was one of those sort of Formica orange.
Oh, I knew you were going to say orange.
Yeah.
I was thinking orange.
with white work surfaces. And I just remember that really, really clearly. And we had a little garden, and there on estates you have these sort of alleyways that sort of link as well as the roads. And quite often you would have blocks of garages as well. So there were a block of garages that used to run across to the left. And one thing I really remember, I was such a tomboy when I was younger. I was always climbing things. I used to climb up onto the fence, and then I used to climb up onto the garage roof, and it used to be something I used to dare my cousin to do, who was 18 months older than me. He was a boy, or he still is a boy, but he wouldn't do it. So I used to do all these daring things. And my father put this really lovely swing in the garden, and it was quite unusual because rather than having chain, sort of the swing, it had sort of fixed metal, and it used to go really, really high, and you could really swing it. And I just remember upstairs, 3 bedrooms. My sister had the smallest room, it was really tiny. And my father built, because it used to have the bulkhead from the stairs, which a lot of these new properties had, which made actually sort of placing furniture in the room really awkward. And it's really weird now when I reminisce and I think back, and I know when I'm looking at plans, they're always things we're looking at, making sure we're maximising room space, which is really funny. But he built this permanent bed that sat over the bulkhead to make more space in the bedroom.
So was he quite handy around the home?
He was really good, he was very good. But things that you just don't think about at the time. And he put in this really, what now would be just monstrously ugly. He built this fire out of these big sort of stones. They were very in these features of fireplaces with these huge big stones and this big hearth. It was grotesque.
Did it run the length of?
It was
the length of the
horrible.
room?
But it was probably his pride and joy. He
It was
built
at
it
the
himself,
time.
and it was on trend then.
And I remember laying on the floor. I still love laying on the floor watching the television, which was very rare because we had ponies and things we were hardly ever in. And I was watching, it used to be John Craven's Newsround, and we had a carpet, and it's just weird when you think about things, and it had the thinnest underlay, and I just remember how hard it used to be. Whereas now you put down your plush underlay and your thick carpet on top, and you can lay on it and it feels really comfortable. Whereas then it was,
not much comfort.
No,
That's what it was. Was it gas central heating, or did you have the air vents? I'm just thinking of the house type that you were in.
It did have warm air heating, but we upgraded it to gas-fired central heating.
Because I'm only saying that because we, at the moment, live in a 60s property, and we renovated it about 4 years ago. And it was only when we were making a bedroom cupboard a little bit smaller that we uncovered the original.
Oh, so you had them
system.
originally,
So we just kind of, blocked it off and carried on because there's, radiators things since. But it's amazing.
So that's probably my overarching sort of childhood memory of that. Was very early doors. We moved up to Thorpe-le-Soken, which was the northern part of Essex, which was lovely. It was more conducive to horses and things like that, so that was quite nice. So we lived up there. And it was an older style property. And I thought it was amazing in comparison to what we left. I had a very large bedroom, so it had been extended. It had a very big kitchen breakfast room. And we had a third of an acre garden. Although it was in a sort of a street, it was leading up to the Naze in Walton. It had this very big garden. And we always had animals, so we had dogs, and my sister had guinea pigs. But we had a goat. So the goats used to live, it had a little stable at the bottom of the garden. And it had a very extravagant name. It was white and it was called Billy. But it was really tame. And we used to take, my friends and I, we used to take it out for walks like a dog. And we actually used to take it onto Walton Pier at night. And we used to.
But your friends loved that.
Yeah. So Billy the goat, he was really tame. We used to walk along. We never took the dogs. We had dogs, but they used to stay at home, and we used to take the goat.
So why did you have a goat?
Because the bottom of the garden, the garden was landscaped, but the bottom was slightly more rough, and it was perfect because the goat used to eat it and keep it all down. And I don't know where my mother got it from. I think she probably rescued it. We used to rescue things quite often, and he used to live down there. It was lovely.
This doesn't sound too strange to me. So my dad grew up with 2 goats.
Yeah.
So much so that my grandma used to put the goats at the back of the car to do like the school run
Yeah.
occasionally. It was just like the goats become
Just to come and pick you up from school. Absolutely. That's lovely.
Was that goat called Billy?
Yeah.
No, funny enough, one of them's actually called what I've now called my daughter. So it was
really?
Lily and Phoebe.
Oh, sweet.
Which is cute names for
Yeah.
goats. Not Billy.
No. He was Billy. So yes, that's where we were then.
So the animals and the horses kind of gave you that passion to earn a little bit more money and get into the property kind of industry. So
Yes, I did finally I sold my last horse. It got to a point where when you're working in agency, it's Saturday and Sunday, and it sort of got to a point where one had to give. Because we didn't have a lot of money, I used to have to, at the weekend, cycle to the stables and back, which was miles away. So I'd get up really early, and I had this really cranky old racing bike. I used to have my 4 slices of toast in the morning with marmalade, and off I'd cycle, and I would do my horse, and then I'd come back. And during the week, before I passed my driving test, my father used to take me to the stables early. So we used to be up at sort of 4:30 in the morning. We'd go up and we'd do the horses, and then we would come back. And I think it got to a point where, although I was competing and I was riding for other people and jumping their horses, it just became too much. And I think it was a point of I either went back and worked within the horse field in its entirety, or I carried on with my job, and I decided to carry on with that. And I suppose the money was a draw as well.
Yeah.
I was doing really well. Working on a Sunday, you used to get paid, at that time it was £50 for the day, but it was quite a lot of money then. And then you were the only person in, so every sale that you did was yours. So I remember one Sunday I sold 5 houses. I sold 5 houses in one day on a Sunday. It used to be when it used to have the old advertising, so you used to send your adverts off to the local publication, your newspaper would come out, phones would ring off the hook. So different. Obviously, we didn't have internet and things like that. So the newspaper used to come out on a Thursday. The phones would go mental, and it would be first to the phone. And as I say, weekends were really, really busy as well. So it was always really good. And I used to work weekend after weekend. I was making £50 just for working on top of my normal salary. And then I would have the lion's share of all the sales. And for me, that was carry on.
Motivation.
What were the homes like that you were showing around? Was it a certain sort of price bracket? Was it kind of your traditional family homes? Yeah,
they were very different. I worked originally for Leicester Eves in Clacton-on-Sea, and it was a really, really large branch. We had sort of nearly 200 properties for sale at one point. I mean, it was a massive branch, huge amounts of staff in there as well. It was so busy. But it would be anything from a 1-bedroom, even studios, sort of apartments, through to sort of bigger country homes. Because obviously around the Clacton-on-Sea area, you go out to more rural areas like Tendring, etc. We get some lovely properties. So it could be any. The majority would actually be carried out by the vendors themselves unless they were vacant. And if they were vacant, you would finish at 2:00 on Sunday, and then you would go off if you wanted to, because it would be in your own time, and do viewings with the keys.
So because we're talking about, the homes that we've lived in and how they've shaped our lives and influenced us, have you got another home that you'd like to talk about?
I think it's the house that we're in now.
Yeah.
I think, interestingly, I've never bought a new home. My parents did. I never have. And I actually never will. I really love old property. So it's very conflicting.
You don't have to say that, it's okay.
It's very conflicting that I sell new homes. I can see the benefit living in an older property. The property that we're in now is 1871. We've been in there.
Just a little bit old.
Yeah, 17 years in November. And it's just the most beautiful. It feels like you're always on holiday. I remember viewing it, and my husband wasn't quite so sure. But it backs onto a beautiful sort of country home called Langley's, and all of the grassland around it used to be a deer park. It's now used for grazing cattle in the summer. So from about April through to November, we have cattle in the back. But it's just such a beautiful location, and the community's amazing. The house isn't big, and actually we've got some lower ceilings, so for tall people it's not very good either. But for the average height person, you're okay. But I really saw the scope of it, and had plans to kind of extend. And my husband had to be convinced it was the right place. But the garden's beautiful, and you've got a hedge at the back. And the funny thing about the hedge is that when we moved, the hedge was really, really tall. And beyond the hedge, you've got this most amazing vista of fields, and then there's the river and trees. And I said to him, we really ought to cut it down, because what's the point in having this beautiful vista if you can't see over the hedge? He said, no, I love the hedge. One day he went shopping, and so I got the shears out and I cut this big view hole in the hedge at the height I wanted to have the hedge. And he came home, and there was this massive hole. And I said to him, have a look through there. And he went, wow, that's amazing. He said, you're always right.
So he then, God, you always want to hear that.
Cut the hedge, and we now have a lower hedge. So when you're in the garden bit, standing up or sitting down, you just have this lovely vista.
I love what you said when you said it feels like I'm always on holiday.
Yes, it does. If you ever sort of go away, if you have a staycation in this country and you rent a cottage, it's like that. It's got steps up and down, and we've done a beautiful extension on the back. We love entertaining and having gatherings and parties. And we've got this, it's a modern twist, but it works really well. A really big kitchen, living, breakfast room with a vaulted ceiling, and all of the windows of the doors, they all slide and open out. So it's just literally feels like you're in the garden.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
And it's just lovely. And there's only 3 bedrooms upstairs, but only my husband and I now. Our daughter, she's moved out, but we spent a lot of money renovating and doing this extension, and we put a bathroom upstairs, because being old, it didn't originally have a bathroom. So we have a very big ground floor bathroom, but we have a bathroom upstairs. And the stairs are actually concrete, so they're not wooden like ordinary stairs. So they're very hard.
Oh, so no creaking.
No creaking.
What are the windows like? Are they drafty?
Well, they were original wooden sash windows. We replaced them with, we found a really good company, and we've put UPVC sash windows in that look beautiful, really nice, thin framed, and they work beautifully.
Yeah, that's nice.
And it really has helped with draft, condensation, and things like that. No, it's not, which is really lovely.
Yeah, it's really lovely property that might be listed.
Yeah. No, it's not. And the community's amazing. And we're on the Essex Way as well, so it's brilliant for walking. We had the Tour de France literally come past the house in 2014, so we have so many cyclists. And we're very outdoorsy, so it's just perfect for running, cycling, walking the dogs.
So it sounds like you couldn't imagine living anywhere else.
No. And it's brilliant commuting as well. I mean, 15 minutes into Chelmsford, very close to the A120, Stansted is 20 minutes away. And it's just one of those houses that, I don't know, it just kind of wraps you up. It's just lovely. We've got a lovely sort of open fireplace in the sitting room, which we don't use very often actually, because that's at the front. A massive log burner in the kitchen that we put in has too big a watt, it's too hot, but it is lovely. And when we get quite a few power cuts where we are. So I remember we had a power cut, it lasted 2 days. And I remember my husband, daughter and I, sitting around the log burner, and we just about managed to not quite boil the kettle, but get the kettle to a reasonable kind of temperature to make tea. But it was really fun. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, so when he's cooking, I just let him stay outside. And when we have guests around, it just works really well, because we're over there And we've got the drinks on the other side as well. So he's very much known for his cocktails. So he'll be over there, and then the guests will be this side, and all the food will be served. And it just works brilliantly. I had my 50th at home, and it was in May, and the weather was atrocious. We were planning to open up all the doors and be outside and inside. We all ended up inside, and there were about 70 people. But it worked absolutely fabulously. Yeah, it was such a good party. It was so good.
So is your kitchen the favourite room in your house, would you say?
Yeah, it's the kitchen, and then it leads to the snug. So recently, obviously with the football being on, so I've taken sort of place in the snug, and my husband is in the kitchen. We have a very big TV in the kitchen that you can turn around and you can watch it from outside if you want to. So he sits there and watches the football, and then I'll watch something else and just keep an eye. I was keeping an eye on the football as well. But the snug is probably my favourite room.
Okay.
And it's kind of it's kind of the transfer room between the big sort of kitchen area. You go into the snug, and then you go through into the study, and then you can go through into the sitting room. It's just one of those really comfortable rooms. And it's a really lovely sofa and a lovely TV cabinet that I found. So this is another story if we have time. So we were looking for this really lovely TV cabinet. We've been along to the usual stores. We've been into Neptune. They had a very nice TV cabinet. It was about £3,500, not solid wood. And there's a really lovely antique sort of place in Turling. It's called the Cow. It was called anyway. A guy called Steve runs it, and we pop in there quite regularly. And there was this old cupboard. It was an old school cupboard, but it was solid wood. It was beautiful. And I said to my husband, that will make a brilliant TV cabinet. I can't see it. I said, just bear with me.
I'm always right.
I'm always right. So anyway, I spoke to Steve, and we had a look at it, and it's got this beautiful, so we've got a base cupboard, and this beautiful solid wood plinth, and then cupboards above. So the cupboards above, I got him to take the shelves out, and I said, I want to put the television in there. And then I got him to paint it, so it's all bespoke and right colours that we wanted. And it's just absolutely beautiful.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It cost £520. I know, and everyone says, oh, it's lovely, it's lovely.
Yeah, it's
so
such a talking point.
It is a real talking point. And yeah, I was right on that one as well. So it's lovely, it's so nice.
So we always like to ask the same question at the end.
Yes.
And the question is, if you could describe what home means to you in 3 words.
I would say family. I think family and just that warm hug. You know when it's that outtake of breath when you step through the door, and just the place that you know people want to be. When my daughter comes home from London, she says, I just always know when I'm home. She said, I open up the lobby door and I walk in, and she said, I can just smell, you know, the diffuser that I've got burning or whatever it is. And she said, I just know I'm home. And I think for me, I suppose the other thing is open door. I've always liked to have a home where people feel comfortable, where they don't ring the doorbell, they just literally walk in the door.
Really?
And
Our first guest said exactly the same?
Yes. Yeah. So when we did all of the work on the house, I had to have the door made because I couldn't find a door that I liked that was big enough and had the right kind of mechanism that it didn't lock. So yeah, I think family, open door,
warm hug. The warm hug. I love that.
Lovely.
Oh, thank you so much, Simone.
You're welcome.
It's been great.
Thanks so much.
Okay.